How did we know that was gonna happen?
Halloween Horror Nights is even closer now. The anticipation just keeps growing by the day. We're awaiting some official announcements. We're waiting for the official release of multi-night tickets. But there's even more speculation to be had. And that's really about the only thing that we can talk about. So let's dive in, because we've heard that this spec map is about as accurate as it's gonna get.
It's pretty darn close. It's pretty close. To start out with, do we need to cover what we know?
Briefly.
Quick rewind, if you haven't watched our last video, we go over it there, but Chucky's gonna be there. The Last of Us is gonna be there. Those will be houses. We're jazzed for them. If you wanna know what we think of those, watch the last video, or keep your eyes peeled for future videos as we hype it on up, because we're gonna be pretty stoked to talk about these. Aside from that, let's talk about what the speculation is on map number 3.
Let's start with the houses.
I think we should be more organized this time. So, as the map is displayed here, we're gonna start on the bottom and work our way clockwise around. And this very first one, as a Pacific Northwest person born and raised, it speaks to me. On the photo, we see pine trees with claw marks through it. And immediately, my brain said, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, this house is made for me.
I've had to kind of talk me into this one. I kind of just defaulted to woods, but as we kind of explored it a little more and kind of thought it through about how powerful of an icon Sasquatch would be,
Yes.
I sort of came around to it. And for the people that spend significant time in the woods that watch our channel, they can definitely attest to the fact that if you're alone in the woods in the dark, it's pretty darn creepy.
It's very creepy. To be in the woods, you don't know what that rustling noise is. It's dark. Can you see anything? Is that a big animal or a big tree coming at you?
Or is it Sasquatch?
Or is it Sasquatch? I think this house is going to be so cool. I really hope that they stick with it. They're not just throwing it out there. And I also wonder, will it smell like the queue of E.T. or better?
I think it's just gonna be super dark. Next house.
Yep.
The Exorcist. We had originally thought that the Exorcist house was gonna be based off Exorcist the Believer. I'm starting to get the feeling that it's gonna revert back to the original Exorcist. However, I have concerns about that. They've done an Exorcist house before, and they did a great job from what we've seen. We didn't experience it, but from the videos we've seen, the Exorcist house was very good. However, The Exorcist primarily takes place in one room. Now, so did Black Phone last year, but any time that the set is relegated to one room, it definitely makes me a little apprehensive.
I'm curious if Exorcist will stick around or not.
I hope it goes to Exorcist the Believer.
I just think there's so many big IPs coming in that I could see this being a house that's on there.
Yeah.
That ends up being a Universal original that gets knocked off. The Exorcist, either way, old or new, would be cool in my opinion.
I could see it getting expanded to the Blumhouse.
I don't think Blumhouse is coming this year.
We'll see. I guess.
And we'll get to that when we talk about the Megan Horde that's on here, but I'm surprised. I've been expecting a Blumhouse the majority of this time. And I think it's trending away from that now.
The next one stayed from Spec Map 2.0 to 3.0, and it's the depiction of the cityscape with the pentagram, which I think we briefly touched on our last video, but we're still feeling witches.
Witches, pagan symbol.
Yeah.
I think no matter what, you get into those type of symbolic pieces, witchcraft, wizardry, it can be a very good original house. I think it will be interesting to see if they interweave something else unique with it, kind of like what they did with Spirits of the Coven. Not only was it witches, but then you had this speakeasy theme to it.
That's where my head went, was Spirits of the Coven, right off the bat.
Yeah, I don't think it will be like that.
No.
But I think that experience of a house plays towards like what kind of things could they do
Right.
with this pentagram and this old town folk people. I think that could be very interesting. I think we're looking at something to do with witches and sacrifice.
In the topmost left-hand side, we have probably everybody's favorite rumored house,
Now, Ben, tell me, what is Stranger Things about?
Vecna.
Who is one of the main characters aside from Vecna as a villain? Who's one of the protagonists in the show?
Vecna.
That's a no. Try it again.
Vecna.
No.
Vecna.
No.
Vecna.
What is the little girl's name in the show with superpowers?
It's a number, that's all I know. But Stranger Things 4
Is coming. It has not yet officially been announced at the time that we're filming this. However, I do want to bring up that last year Universal did seem to be planning to have this as a house. Then it kind of fell through. I'm gonna have Ben put a tweet that I took a screen grab of last year in June on the screen here because they were pushing it. Like it was gonna come and then it fell through. And so we haven't seen anything new like these types of tweets to tease anything out about Stranger Things yet, but it seems like it's happening.
Vecna.
Ben's about to start binge watching 4 seasons worth of Stranger Things.
Buckle in.
And I think between having Stranger Things and The Last of Us, it's about to be a big year for Halloween Horror Nights.
The next one that stayed on the map from Speculation 2.0 to 3.0 is the Dragon in the Castle, which we touched on a lot of on our last video, which we speculate is the Dueling Dragons house.
I'm pumped for that house. I have hopes that it's going to be just as beautiful as
Dead Man's Pier.
Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Wake. Yes, it's because it's in the same location basically, so I'm just assuming. However, I just think there's so much they can play up with it. I don't think it will be the scariest of all scary houses, but I do think it will be very well done as far as the artisticness of it. In fact, as I'm talking about this and knowing we're doing Behind the Screams tour, I'm getting more and more excited to just see how they make these things possible.
Hopefully see the giant dragon puppets.
Yes. Universal, please make there be giant dragon puppets.
Next we have Chucky, but we already touched on Chucky a lot in our last video. So we're gonna keep moving along the lagoon, and we come to the
Large
old sea symbol, which, if you do some research,
Which we did, because immediately after this release, we had to dive into things.
Jack Schmidt has a very similar symbol, and if you know, Jack Schmidt becomes Jack the Clown.
The prior symbol was that circus tent. We speculated some thoughts about being a circus and seeing Jack turn into this evil clown and what happens to him and all of that. We also learned a lot about Dr. Oddfellow within this research and just looking into who is Dr. Oddfellow, why is he so important, because you also will see on the spec map our Carnival of Oddities horde. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but Dr. Oddfellow really plays a significant role with Jack, and he's always been behind the scenes in multiple Halloween Horror Nights events. So we might see him more in play here, and I don't really know what's going to come of this, but what I do feel confident saying is that Jack the Clown's going to be back.
In some respect.
In some respect, and I think we're going to be seeing some form of Jack, some form of Dr. Oddfellow. I'm really hoping as some form of an icon.
Could Dr. Oddfellow be the icon of HHN 32?
I would prefer Jack.
I think they're gonna introduce a new icon this year.
Maybe both.
With Dr. Oddfellow. Yes, I think Jack could make a comeback. I think one, he'll be in the house. I also think he could be roaming in that sort of horde of oddities. But I think the overall icon of this year is they'll introduce Dr. Oddfellow.
That's a pretty
It's a bold claim.
It's a bold claim, Cotton. It's a bold claim.
Moving past the lagoon, past what is speculated as the Dr. Oddfellow house, we have a guitar with devil horns.
Now I heard something today.
Devil went down to Georgia?
Yeah, devil went down to Georgia.
It's hot enough down here in the South Georgia area that the devil truly might be here because it's 95 with about 100% humidity.
Yeah,
But
you're walking through soup every day.
I don't know much about this. I still hope it's going to be a musical house, but I'm tending to think it's actually not going to be. Except I don't know enough about The Devil Went Down to Georgia to speculate any other way, minus the song.
Fun fact, I know all the words to the song. But aside from
That
that,
doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
no, I do actually think some form of like the bayou, a little bit more Louisiana style. I think that could be a bit creepy.
Creature of the Black Lagoon.
No, talking the devil, talking spirits, talking like that sort of thing. I think they could do something pretty darn interesting with that.
Could have an interesting backstory.
I think I would prefer that over the musical house, particularly if we're talking more of like a rock musical house. I know that we were very, very,
Adamant.
I was pretty adamant about Lady Gaga, still am.
That'd be cool.
But I don't see that happening in this house so much, and I would prefer a more original house by Universal Creatives than doing, I don't know, we talked about, what was it? Rob Zombie, Led Zeppelin, things like that, like throwing out a bunch of things in that nature. And I think it'd be good, but I would be curious to learn like what do they come up with. And
continuing to work past that Animal Actors location, you have what stayed from Spec Map 2 to 3 is Monsters in Paris. I don't think we need to touch on this one quite as much. We touched on it quite a bit in our last video. Again, we think it's going to be a classic Monsters house from Universal, interweaving various themes. And I think we're still sticking Phantom of the Opera and Dracula.
Yeah, I feel very comfortable with like, it's going to be a Universal Monsters themed, and it's going to be good because of that.
It'll be good.
Regardless of the backstory, regardless of Phantom of the Opera, Dracula, or any other Universal Monsters, I think it will be a very great house and well done. So then let's move on a little bit and talk about our shows.
Nightmare Fuel's back!
As we said in the prior video as well.
No shock.
Super jazzed for that.
It'll be good. We'll go see it.
It will be good. The new show that's listed is the Vamp show on the 3.0 map. We're still unsure when it's like, I guess it's not even unsure. We're really thinking there's no water show at this point.
The Vamp show has me more inclined to believe it's something like the dancing in front of Mel's.
I think it really is closer to the dancing in front of Mel's. And if it is, how do you feel about that?
I'm not psyched about it.
Yeah.
It's going to congest that whole area up if people stay and watch it. Now, if it's the same number of people as like the chainsaws don't really congest that area. But I have concerns given its location, being right next to what we'll talk about in a second in the jungle scare zone. But that Mel's area is a prime thoroughfare for houses, scare zones, and now you're going to congest it even more with a show.
Are we not big vampire people? I don't think
I'm not
we
big
are.
corny vampire people.
Yeah, we're more like, give me the legit Dracula.
Yeah. We'll get to even more Vamp here in a second.
Yeah.
The first scare zone we're going to talk about is Vamp 69. Universal, you could have picked a better number.
You could have. But regardless, we're looking at a vampire-themed scare zone in the 60s. Now, Ben and I specifically looked at the year 1969, and that is the year of the moon landing. Now,
vampires in space.
I don't feel like they're gonna go with vampires in space at all.
Universal has done Vamp shows in the past. They did Vamp 55, which was basically what felt like a high school football team. And then they also did Vamp 85, which was based around kind of a New Year's party.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, I'm not a huge fan of the corny vampires. Like, give me the old school Dracula all day.
If you disagree with Ben on that, put it in the comments. He is more than happy to talk with you about vampires.
Scare zone that I am the most excited about on this map, after doing some research, the strange symbols up in New York.
The zodiac symbols.
Zodiac symbols, exactly. And after doing some research, Universal Singapore did a Dark Zodiac show. I'm blanking on the year. Somebody help me out and tell me what year Universal Singapore did Dark Zodiac. But we watched it, and it looked pretty good.
It was okay.
I think it'll be very similar to
Conjure the
Dark
Yeah.
last year, where there are creatures that will move around fairly consistently, but then you also have those times where it turns into more of a show.
Right. I think that that's exactly what's going to happen. Do I like the idea of the Dark Zodiac? I think that the costume design and things are going to be very unique and very creative. So it could be pretty cool. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I do appreciate where it's located on the map because I feel like they'll have more room to be able to work and roam that area when they are able to roam versus where they had the dark,
Conjure the Dark.
Where they had Conjure the Dark last time.
Moving on through the lagoon, sort of in that San Francisco area, we've got these horns.
They are Krampus.
They're Krampus horns. Universal's done a Krampus scare zone before. I think they're just gonna bring it back.
I think that'll be interesting, kind of a fun, creepy way to do things. I just think Krampus is gross and good, gross in a good way. And I'm curious what the overall theme for HHN 32 will be.
And the last scare zone that got speculated was jungle.
Welcome to the jungle.
Yeah, that's about all I got.
I think the jungle could be very creepy. I think that's what I said last time about this.
This one was like the holidays on the last Spec map.
You're right. It wasn't even on there last time. I think jungle will be very creepy. I don't know what to say about jungle other than just like being in the Pacific Northwest woods in the dark. Being in the jungle in the dark is also very creepy. I hope it's just as well themed as our scarecrow. Farm, dilapidated farmhouse, barn, all that was last year. I hope they theme that area just as well.
I love the play of it because the jungle, and you have all that overhead cover from the Central Park trees, and then Universal, very punny, having it by animal actors. I see you.
All right, so we talked through the scare zones. The next thing that's on this map that's a little bit different than last time are the hordes that are listed. Now, the very first one on here is the Carnival of Oddities. Specifically, we talked about how that plays with Dr. Oddfellow, Jack the Clown. Again, as we looked into the backstory of Jack the Clown, Dr. Oddfellow did have his oddities that he would show in his, what was it, like?
House of Horrors.
House of Horrors. Now, something that does concern me about this is that main scare zone that you would normally see as you initially walk on in, and it's right there in front of you and beautiful, isn't on here this year. You have a horde instead. And although I think that could be very cool, I think the opening ceremonies are going to be very different because of it.
Could be.
And now you're like, all right, where's your backdrop of this thing to get you super jazzed and excited? What are you looking at? So it really seems right now, in my opinion, that that first initial scare zone that is the overall theme sets the tone isn't going to be there this year. As much as we threw the Pumpkin Lord under the bus last year of not being able to get up and walk around and roam around, like, he was there though. You could see him as you got in. And now what are you going to be looking for? I do think it sets us up with that Dr. Oddfellow as an icon and or Jack the Clown with him. But what are your thoughts on that? The horde aspect of it.
I'm not a big fan of the hordes just in general. But I will second the idea that I have concerns about the initial decor facades that are in place right along that minion alley. Now that might be because they still want to run minions during that time because it will be the new shiny thing that's at Universal.
Maybe.
And they don't want to take away from that, but it's Halloween Horror Nights. Let's scare people.
It's not for kids.
Halloween Horror Nights is not for kids. I get it. You'll want to push people to Minions and experience that because you'll get them coming back during the day. They'll spend more money. Got it. But it's Halloween Horror Nights. This is not a kid-friendly thing.
So let's talk a little bit about the difference of a scare zone versus a horde, just so we're clear on that. A scare zone is a whole built set, basically, and they have specific scare actors that are working that area, and there's a lot more budget put into it, I guess is very important to note. Versus a horde, if you've seen the chainsaw group that come out during HHN, depending on where their area is located. It used to be Simpsons. They moved it over by Mel's last year. That's a horde. Mm-hmm. Those chainsaw people, the 10 of them, 8 of them, whatever they have, that is considered a horde. And they come through, they do their thing, and they go. Now, there isn't sets made for them. There aren't the lighting structures built for them. There isn't the press a button and a scream comes out. That's not gonna happen when it comes to a horde. And so very curious for this very front horde. It does make me worried a little bit about the opening ceremonies. I guess at this point we just kind of have to wait and see.
The second horde that's listed as we continue clockwise is the Death Eaters. HHN is finally coming to Diagon Alley. How do you feel about that?
I'm stoked about it. One of the main reasons is because last year when we went to HHN was one of my first times with the opportunity to get to see the Death Eaters, and we were there too early in the season. We actually had gone over to Hogsmeade over in Islands. We were skipping the first part of HHN for that night, I believe, and I wanted to see the Death Eaters, and they weren't there. I would suspect that if they're listing Death Eaters on this map over in Diagon Alley, they will be there for all of HHN. I would suspect.
But will they be relegated to Nocturne Alley?
That'd be even better and awesome and a little compact, but that would be awesome. I don't think they will be, but I do think that they will wait to come out until it's dark.
I think just having them in Nocturne Alley would be super creepy. And the final horde that's listed, I'm not
Ben's
excited
favorite.
I'm not excited about this one.
The Megan horde.
Lame.
I don't think it's
lame.
It's not necessarily lame. Okay. Question. Would you rather have a Megan horde or a Megan house?
I would have rather they spent the money somewhere else.
Would you rather have a Megan horde or a Megan house?
Megan house.
Okay.
The reason I feel that way. One, I'm not a huge fan of the Megan IP to really begin with, but if it was gonna be there, I would much have rather it been a house and then Universal spent a lot of money on the house. Mm-hmm. 2, there's only one Megan.
That's
you
true.
Cannot have a horde of Megans.
She was a robot doll. You could make more of her.
You could, but it's not in the movie. So where is this horde of Megans coming from?
She's artificial intelligence. She made more of herself.
But she died in the movie.
Well,
I don't like it.
So I suspect the horde will do a lot of the Megan dance as she does. And also I expect one of the Megans that's dancing to be able to do that kick flip with her feet over her head. And also most of the actors playing this Megan are gonna have to be quite small human beings because she's a doll. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this. We don't spend much time over in the Simpsons area anyway during HHN, so you and I probably won't be spending much time over there. It'll be an interesting area.
Got it.
It feels a little light for scare zones. I just feel like we're missing one, We're missing one big one.
You're missing one up front.
Unless they have yet to put it on there.
Yep. I'm sure there'll be more speculation maps, and I'm sure we'll have to make another video to keep you guys all updated.
That would be pretty darn cool. I wouldn't be mad about it.
If you guys have any additional thoughts or opinions, be sure to let us know. You guys did a great job in the last video of letting us know your thoughts and opinions. We love talking about it because I think the more brains we have working this problem, the closer we're gonna get. If you got anything out of this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and stick around for more Universal content. Thanks for watching.
Bye.